There really should be a class action lawsuit against Ford because of what they've done with their fuel pumps. And this is not a new topic. It's been going on since 2011. It's affected all the manufacturers. The CP4 pumps on these trucks are very problematic and poorly designed. So the reason I'm talking about this today, even though it's not a new topic, is because I have recently experienced some issues on this 2023 F450 6.7 high output. What I noticed is the truck wasn't running the best. I could tell with the idle that there was a little bit more vibration, very minor though, something that, if you turn on the radio and just drive it, you wouldn't notice. But I noticed that the idle was not quite the same, like it was just a little vibration, very minor. So driving on the highway, it kind of seemed like the tires might have been out of balance. And that would not be an uncommon thing with the F450s because you really can't rotate the tires without dismounting. The drivetrain felt a little bit rougher. So I'm thinking, man, these tires really must be getting out of balance. But then on idle, when you're just creeping with your foot off the brake, you can just hear the change rattle for 1 second and then it's moved back out. And then maybe 10, 15 seconds later, the change will rattle for just 1 second, very minor, and then it's moved back out. So after about 2 days of this, I finally just tried to listen to the motor and I said, I think something could be going on with the fuel. So I ordered filters. I went and purchased fuel filters. And when I went to the dealer, they let me know that the fuel filters had went up in price. It's a couple $100. Well, let me not say a couple hundred. It's more like $130, $140 right now to purchase fuel filters from the dealer. And what you get is this square cartridge style filter and this plastic thing that goes up top under the hood. And at the end of the day, the only reason for the use of these proprietary filters is so that Ford can charge you more money for a filter. Why is a filter so much money and it doesn't even have metal casing around it? They've created a casing that is reusable. It stays on the vehicle and the element comes out, and then you put this element up into the housing, and they don't have to have the metal casing. Everything's plastic and you don't have to worry about that. Furthermore, the one under the hood, there's no steel. It's just a plastic thing that is known to leak. No steel in it. And they own that. They own the rights to that. So they get to make all the money on the filter side because people are going to want to use OEM filters on their trucks. And Ford is the only one that makes a good one. If you go aftermarket, I don't know. It's kind of a mystery. Meaning, if you go aftermarket with regards to using the Ford OEM housings, that's risky. Now, if you were to take off the Ford housing and go aftermarket with a spin-on type of filter, that might be the way to go. But the issue is, and the reason why I think there needs to be a lawsuit, if there's not already one, I think there might be one, but there needs to be another one. Their water separator is awful. It doesn't even work. It doesn't separate water before it gets to the engine. So, like I said, I noticed that it was idling weird. I went ahead and changed the filter. And when I changed the filter, I noticed that there was water in the system. But the filters were okay. They have a lot of surface area. They weren't like any problem with the fuel filter. So the water separator gave me no indication that there's water in the fuel. And there was water getting all the way to the engine. And I could see just a little bit of metal flake in the bottom of the tray. So this water that gets into the fuel system immediately starts to destroy the fuel pump. The fuel pump cannot handle any amount of water. And when they're doing their warranties, if you have any water in the fuel, then your warranty will be void. And all the components apparently rust. There's something in there that can just rust. If water touches it, it immediately rusts. And that's how they deny the claim. So if there's any amount of rust on this component that you don't know if there's rust on it, the dealer takes apart the engine and they determine if there's rust on this component. But how does rust get on a component because water got on it? It would have to almost, in my opinion, wouldn't it? I mean, a mixture of water and fuel, how corrosive is that? I don't know. How does it rust if it's submerged in water and fuel for a temporary period of time? I don't know. It's kind of, I don't know. It's a little bit questionable to me. So apparently they take these engines apart and they find this rust on these few components, and then they can deny the claim if that is what happens. But in my case, I'm not sure if there's rust in the system, but there seems to be that this engine probably burned a little bit of water mixed fuel. It's not that it burned pure water or anything like that, but it certainly burned, well, most likely, I'm not sure, but there was certainly water in the fuel. And here's a look at the fuel sample that I have in a glass jar here. As you can see, there's one bubble of water right there. And before I actually put the fuel in this glass jar, I was seeing a little bit more than that. Like in the bottom of the tray, I could see just a little bit of water when I took it off. But I'm gonna go ahead and dump this out and pull a little bit more fuel out today, because I could feel the idle got a little bit weird again. I don't know how water is getting into this, but it seems like you're inadvertently going to get water in your fuel system. So why hasn't Ford come out with a solution when the aftermarket has multiple different solutions, disaster kits? They have different CP4 pumps, or what's called a DCR pump. They have different things that have, without billions of dollars, have been developed. So anyway, let's take a sample of this fuel. Let me drain this one and then fill it with the fuel from under the truck. Okay, so with the idle starting to feel just a little bit weird, I'm pulling some fuel. I'm gonna see what the heck is going on right now. And do I have water in my fuel again? Now, if Ford wasn't trying to reinvent the wheel, they've got their own proprietary water separators. They've got their own filters. You would hope, or you would think, that their water separators would be better than what you get from a spin-on filter. But I don't know if that's the case. I mean, what the heck is going on? These shoddy fuel systems. It can't take what is going to be expected from the environment. So this is almost full, then I gotta let it settle out. I'm gonna pause this. Okay, so I've drained the fuel. I'm working on repriming up the system. Very critical with these trucks. That sample that I took out is now settling, but going through a few key cycles here. Off and back on, letting it prime. And I can hear that it's pumping that fuel back up. Can hear things under the hood filling back up. Air voids being worked out. And just cycling the key on, and that electric pump is gonna pump. And I'm gonna wait till that pump stops, and then I'm gonna cycle through it again. But let's take a look at our fuel sample as it's settled now. What? There does seem to be, there's some separation there. There's something in there. It seems like there's a little bit of water in this fuel. Now, why is this Ford's fault? Well, at the end of the day, there is no indication on the truck that there's water in the fuel. There's a sensor called the whiff sensor down on that housing, but it doesn't know. It can't detect that amount of water. So I'm draining it. I'm gonna have to do something. I'm not gonna drive it right now. I'm gonna drain a large amount of fuel out. Matter of fact, now there's no point in priming it. So I'm gonna drain a bunch of this fuel to try to get all the water that settles after it sits. I don't know how much is going to come out, but I very well might need an entire fuel system at this point just because of this water. But the Ford factory setup, the factory filter, cannot detect water. If you follow the manufacturer, which tells you to lower the water or to drain the water if you see the light indication turn on the dash, you'll be way too late and your truck probably is already stalled or dead by the time you actually see the indication go off on the dash. Ford has designed their proprietary water separators for as long as water separators have existed. This one seems to be inadequate. This one seems to allow just water to go freely through it. So for the guys that take their OEM style filters off completely and go with a spin on, that's probably the move, because this filter doesn't, in my opinion, it doesn't seem to catch water unless it's a freaking lot of water. Like a lot of water. So comment below, let me know your thoughts. Should Ford be responsible for this fuel issue? Is their way of diverting blame legit, or is it kind of unsavory that they're blaming the customer for this issue? Comment below, let me know your thoughts. My name is Sean, this is DS Trucks. See you in the next one. Over and out.